Hi everyone, it's Tess from teachwithtess.com, and here on my channel where you can find out all things Wales English, teaching ESL online and of course working from home, you're going to find out a little bit more about the Chinese culture, its education system, parental expectations, what the students really enjoy doing, what they do on their days off, and all things that you may want to know more about in order to be a more relevant, more sensitive, more equipped maybe ESL teacher for Chinese kids. So today I'm going to be joined with Justin and Maggie, who are teachers with Wales English. They've both lived and taught in China for a long time, and so have a huge insight into what it's really like over there, what the schools are like, what the children like, etc, etc. So I'm really excited to welcome them today. I hope it's super useful for you and that it helps you understand your students better. Anyway, without further ado, here they are. Thank you for joining us today. Maggie and Justin are here to discuss all things China and to help us teachers who know very little or not enough to be more confident and, as I said earlier, probably more informed, more effective, more sensitive to your students over in China. So Maggie, could you start by introducing yourself, just telling us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, my name is Maggie Kasicki. And my experience with China is that I take US students and principals and administration to China for visit. We travel, and then our students participate in forums with high school and middle school students in China. And then we volunteer. Our students and teachers will volunteer for a free English camp every summer. And so we stay there. The students and the teachers will stay there about 3 weeks, and I stay there about 10 weeks every single summer.
Wow, wonderful. And how long have you been with Wales? Because you also teach with Wales, don't you?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. Fantastic. Okay, super. Thank you. Justin.
Hi, I'm Justin Davis, and I lived over there for 7 years uninterrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in Wuhan,
Mm-hmm.
and then Shanghai, and I traveled all over, particularly southeastern China, doing those winter and summer camps.
Oh, yeah.
That Maggie mentioned. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It was for Crazy English. And then, so yeah, I mean, I loved it over there. Actually, I loved the culture. And my primary job was at the university in Wuhan to teach. Primarily, I had business English students, tourism English, hotel restaurant English, and coaching them, preparing them for the CET, which is the Chinese English test.
Yeah.
That they need to get good scores on if they want to get a good job, but especially at a foreign business type, company. And then in Shanghai, my primary job was preparing students for the IELTS and TOEFL exams. And I also taught dance, drama, and history, and Spanish and French in Shanghai.
Wow. So how many years were you there, Justin?
7.
7. And how many years have you been going over to China, Maggie?
6.
6. Right. So let's crack on. Now, we're going to talk about 3 sort of main areas. The first one I thought would be really interesting would be to know a little bit more about the education system over in China and compare the types of schools. You know, what's a typical day, maybe some similarities, differences, the teaching style, method, that sort of thing. So who would like to sort of kick off on maybe what's a typical day in a Chinese school, Maggie, then?
So I have taught in public and private schools in China. The students eat their meals at school. So breakfast, lunch, dinner. Yeah, we'll eat at school, and the food is delicious. It is. I enjoyed eating at school much more than eating at a cafeteria in America. I enjoyed eating at school. And now they also, while I'm there, I'm sure that they kind of up their game, but I thought the food was great. One of the big things that I think is important is that they take a nap. They take a rest in the middle of the day.
All ages, or just
they have 2 hours for lunch. Most of the time they have 2 hours for lunch.
Okay.
So that is a very big difference. So, when we hear about how long their school day is, that really has to be taken into account, that they have this 2-hour rest time in the middle of the day. That I think that is something that teachers outside of China don't understand. But when they come to the US, they get really tired in the middle of the day. In the US, our lunch times can just be 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And my poor Chinese students are like, 20 minutes.
Well, I've noticed that most of them eat fast anyway, so they have more time to sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to lunch with students, I don't know how many countless times, and I'm halfway through and they're done. And, teacher, okay if we go? I'm like, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Go take a nap. It's cool. I know you do that. And Chinese people can sleep anywhere with any amount of noise.
Really? Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, when you're used to jackhammers at 5 a.m.,
you learn to sleep.
There's also, though, if I may, there is a big difference between the camp day, like an English camp day, and a regular school day. They're not really the same. And yes, I think Maggie's right. They do up the game on the food for the summer camps, because if you look at the amount that parents pay, most of those camps aren't cheap. And I know, Maggie, you said that your teachers volunteer, but is it free for the parents as well? Free for the families to attend the camp?
So I didn't really want to go into it, but I teach in the school too. So I actually go while the kids are in session before camp season. So I go and do teaching inside the schools to help supplement their actual English instruction with their actual teachers. So when we do forum, they're actually in their school time. This is not camp time. So when we go at the end, so we'll go at their end of their school year through camp time. So the forums are actually a class. The top students get a chance to, before they take Gaocaos or whatever testing is, we are in the school having a traditional school day. Our students do a traditional school day with them. So it's really a cool experience for them. So we stay to be in school and to do summer camp.
Yeah.
So
okay, well, and Maggie mentioned the Gaokao. That's a test that every time a Chinese student goes from primary to middle and then middle to high school, they have to take a test for placement, and they all do it. And it's on the weekends. And they're held and they're supervised. You should imagine an SAT, but for a third grader. And they take comprehensive achievement tests every year. Yeah. But the big ones are the primary to middle, middle to high, and then high to college exams that they take. And the Gaokao is the one for high school. Gaozhong means like high school.
And I think one of the important things for teachers that I've taught in brick and mortar schools to understand that there are between 52 and 54 high school students in a classroom. And so that was almost unimaginable to me when I went the first time, to see the amount of students that are in a classroom. And so there's really needs to be a specific teaching style in order just for there to be classroom maintenance and classroom management when you have 54 students. So my college teaching style is very Socratic method, very Wales, very question answer, but it is not something that our students are used to, because there are so many students in a classroom that they have to have direct teaching just for classroom management. It's impossible with 54 students to say, what do you think? How do you feel? You can't do it.
There are different kinds of schools. There are public and private and international.
Yeah.
And that's where the number of students in the class can really vary. In the international schools, they're more expensive. The classes tend to be a lot smaller. And all of the classes are taught in English except for Chinese.
Yeah.
So
Right.
like even
and that's when we get those 6 and 7-year-olds that have incredible English. I mean, how are they doing this? Most of them go to international school.
They go to the international
that's
schools.
really interesting to know, because I know I've certainly had children I'm doing G4 with who are 10, 11, and they're international school children. So is because we were sort of talking about a day in school. How long is it? When does it start? When does it end? Because they seem to have this never-ending amount of learning to do.
That also
sorry, Justin, carry on.
Well, that also depends on the school and the area,
Right,
the city.
okay.
I mean, out of curiosity, Maggie, where do you go
So
every year?
So there is no every year. So Shenyang, Shanghai, Jiaxing, Hangzhou, Nanjing. So Shenyang is really a city up in the north.
It's far north. Yeah, it's near the Korean border.
So we build these relationships with high schools and middle schools there, so that we can experience it with our students. And so we have sister school programs here in the US. So we have our sister schools, and then we try and go visit them. So no matter where they are, but the free camp that I do is always in Jiaxing.
But what about the actual sort of
the day? So again, that can vary. Most, like Maggie said earlier, most of the time they eat lunch at school, but not always. There are some who go home in the smaller cities, and a smaller city may only have 1 million people in it. That's small by Chinese standards. And sometimes they'll go home for lunch.
I've
and then come back.
I've never experienced that.
It's a lot fewer than the other way around. And like I said, it's the smaller places that do that. Shanghai and Wuhan, and you mentioned Hangzhou and Shenyang, and those places, they always eat at school. And I've noticed that most of the time the school day starts, most of them will get up at 6. And also it depends if they are international schools. A lot of times they live at the school during the week, or even over the weekend if they if their home is a city that's farther away. The domestic, what I call domestic, because where I worked in Shanghai at Tianjiabing, they had both. Most of the students were what we call domestic. They came in during the day and they went home at night. And their classes were in Chinese. They were not part of the international department. And they would come in, most of them would get up at 6. They'd come in around like 7 or a little after 7, 7:30. They'd do the flag ceremony outside. They'd all come up, they'd all line up and form up out on the track in the football, soccer, whatever you prefer to call it, field. The international students get up at 6, and then they have their breakfast, lunch, and dinner at school. So anyway, they do the flag raising ceremony, they come back in, they have classes until 11. Tianjiabing's cafeteria was not big enough to take care of all the students. So the lower level, the 5th, 6th, and 7th graders had lunches brought to the classroom and actually ate in the classroom. And then they would take, I was like, don't you guys want to get outside? Something like, and then, they'll have classes in the afternoon. And then, now this is where it can vary. Some schools, they will have some kind of sports at the end of their school day, and the kids will go home in the late afternoon. Others, though, they'll do a sports thing, then they'll go back in and have a study hall and end up going home around 7 or 8. But at least then their homework is done most of the time. So generally that day is how it's different from us. Also, the system itself is different. There's only 11 grades in the Chinese system. Now, a lot of the international schools go by the Western system. But the Chinese system, 11th grade is senior year. And they go to school almost all year round. Winter, there's a winter holiday and a summer holiday, but a lot of times the parents will get the kids into the camps, for example, during that so-called holiday. They all take at least a week or two for Chinese New Year, for Spring Festival, which is huge. If you ever, Maggie, if you're ever over there in the wintertime during Spring Festival, do not travel. Do not try to travel around the country the week before the Spring Festival holiday. It's crazy.
Everyone's moving.
Anyway, I mean, seriously, billions of people. I learned that the hard way my first year there. So they have far less, once the Chinese students, they find out, oh, well, American kids get summer completely off most of the time. And they're like, what? But I think that also contributes to the fact that, or why it kind of balances out, because they don't have long holidays. They don't need 12 grades. I'm sure the theory behind it, that they can do it in 11 and then go on to college.
I was just going to, because it's really interesting hearing this. So they start at 6, like some of them can get back at 7. Obviously they don't all get back at 7 because we're teaching some of them from 5 p.m. So how does the school day in, your experiences work around sort of the schools like Wales, where they're getting all their additional, are most students in China getting some form of additional education in all subjects? Or
yes,
Saturday and Sunday. That's why Saturday and Sunday is so big, because
me too.
They absolutely have classes of some kind for sure all day Saturday, and then maybe half the day on Sunday. So it is 7 days a week of some sort of study.
Yeah, it's either online or there are training centers, which I did a lot of work at as well.
It's sorry to interrupt, John. I just, this is enlightening, because I always ask, so what have you been up to? And you just hope at some point they're going to say something other than, I've been at school, I'm doing my homework. But that's all they tend to ever say they've been doing. So what are the opportunities that they have to do activities? What sort of activities, if, I'm sort of branching out a bit more from education here, although there may well be more things to add in, but what sort of activities do they do that we as teachers can try to engage with them?
Oh yeah, that's usually incorporated in the school curriculum.
Yeah, they don't do external.
Well, they'll do well, sometimes they'll do dance and stuff and learn to, a lot of them more often than not know how to play some musical instrument, but they'll have classes on like STEM, robots, and a lot of times those are incorporated in the school system. And they get to choose those electives. It's like when I taught Spanish and French over there, it was just an elective class. It wasn't serious, because I'm not fluent in either one, but I know how to, say, oh, how are you today? I'd like a hamburger. My hat is brown, stuff like that. It wasn't an accredited course. It was just for fun, because the kids were like, Mom says if I can, we can go to France or whatever. So anyway, Gosh, I don't know. I should let Maggie talk a little bit here.
No. Well, I'm going to quiz Maggie all about, because obviously this sort of leads on, as talking about activities. Before we finish on that, because as I said, I can edit stuff around this video. Is there anything else? So we've talked about the different types of school, the sort of length that they're in schools. Maggie, you were both talking about the sort of teacher is the higher authority and will talk, and the students learn in rote, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, direct teaching. But they all have, for each grade, there is a head teacher, a lead teacher. So the way that a grade works is that they have their individual classes, and then there is a head teacher or a lead teacher. They don't want to have to go talk to the head teacher or the lead teacher. That head teacher or lead teacher is really a parental figure. They do the discipline. Yeah. Especially if they are at school, living at school. If you act up in class, the head teacher is notified, and that's who you have to go see. If you have a problem in the dormitory and you act up in the dormitory, you go see your head teacher. And they're really a parental figure for those students. So, teachers have a lot of respect and authority.
Yeah, that's interesting. This brings us on quite well. We've talked about holidays. You said there aren't very many of them.
There are. So
Yeah, there actually are.
Tell me about the holidays, Maggie.
Okay, so starts the Spring Festival.
Yeah.
And then
Dragon
Chinese
Boat.
National Day, Dragon Boat Festival.
How long?
Day.
Sweeping.
Sorry, just to, because I've heard of all these holidays. I know about them. What sort of break from schools do they get? 2 weeks for the Chinese New Year, Spring Festival.
Up to a month for Chinese New Year.
Up to a month.
Yeah, I mean,
wow. Okay.
A lot of children, a lot of families get a month.
Okay.
It can be a solid month.
They just had the Lantern Festival, haven't they?
That's the end of the Spring Festival.
That's the end of Chinese New Year.
Okay.
Chinese National Day, they'll get 2 days off.
Okay.
They get a week.
Yes,
a week
to 2. Right, that's true. It depends on where.
Yeah.
2 days to a week.
Yeah.
Dragon Boat Festival.
That one's 3 days.
3 days. Okay, this is great. Carry on, Maggie.
So then we have Labor
Sweeping.
Day. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Labor Day.
The Tomb Sweeping Festival. Labor Day. Yeah, that's May 1st, I think.
Yeah.
And there is Harvest Moon Festival, the Autumn Festival.
Yeah, that's the mooncakes.
Yeah, that'll be another 2 weeks.
So
that's October.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite holiday being there was Children's Day. So I highly recommend watching any YouTube videos on Children's Day. They actually just celebrate children.
Yeah.
And it is the most, if they don't get a day off from school, but the children are at school doing super fun activities. Highly recommend looking at YouTube videos about Children's Day. It is personally my favorite Chinese holiday, and I think that we should have it here.
Well, yeah, I think they've made some sort of showing of trying to make it an international thing, and nobody really pays attention, unfortunately, because I agree 100% with what Maggie said about it. It's important. It's really good for their morale because they work so hard, during all the rest of the time. And there's one more Tomb Sweeping Festival. You get at least 2 or 3 days for that. Okay. And then you have 2 makeup classes on weekends. So that's another good thing for people to know. If you get a bunch of cancellations, all of a sudden you look at your schedule, it's like, why do I not have any of my Sunday classes? Well, they probably have to go to school to make up for the holidays.
That's really interesting. That is really interesting. So they have holidays, that's good, but they often have to make up for the time lost.
They always have to make up at least some of it.
No, that's okay.
And I think the really important thing to say about Spring Festival, if they have homework, a lot
tons
of homework. So you think they're off of school, they're on vacation. No.
Books, and they carry on with us most of the time, don't they?
I was told to pile it on for my classes. They had to like read a book, read The Wizard of Oz and write this or that about it. And they have tons of math homework, tons of Chinese homework. So it's really brutal. I would turn in my plan and they'd be like, no, it's not enough. Do it again. Damn. Okay.
It's really different, isn't it? To, certainly the way the UK and European schools are. Yes, you give homework. Yes, but this holidays are holidays, and you give them a bit of holiday work. But at the ages that we're talking about, so a lot of the younger students, 6, 7, 8, they still come home. My 10-year-old saying, "Oh, I got so much homework." 9 o'clock, they finish with me, and they're going off to do homework. And you say they get up at sort of 6-ish in the morning.
The Spring Festival can be anywhere from 12 hours to 20 hours total worth of homework that they have to do. It's crazy. Even over the summer, at the university in Wuhan, I didn't have to do this. They didn't make us give holiday homework at the college level. But for Tianjiabing, I had to, even when they're moving from one grade into another, they have homework that's like math and stuff to prepare for that next level. Crazy. So it's insane.
Crazy. Okay, so let's say, you say the activities tend to be very much activity is going to be very much linked to school. Now, Maggie, do you want to talk a little bit more about summer camp? How does that tie in? What sort of students go to summer camp in China? What's your experience about that?
Well, the word summer camp means something very different in China than it does in America. In America, we go to a cabin in the woods and run around and paddle in boats and canoes and, you know, do arts and crafts. That is not summer camp.
No, they should call it boot camp.
That is not summer camp in China. It is what I would call intensive study, right? So during the school year, you have 6 or 7 subjects, right? So you're hitting kind of large issues. But then when you do summer camp, it's an intensive, right? So it's considered, it would be an intensive English focus or an intensive TOEFL focus or an intensive IELTS focus. This is an intensive, right? They're going to math camp. So it is math all day, every day. They're going to computer camp. That is all day, every day. So that is, summer camp is maybe for Americans, they would feel duped. We send them to summer camp in China.
It's completely different.
What is this? Where's my canoe?
Science is another popular one.
So
they would even make them, I don't know if Maggie encountered this, but the ones that I worked at, a lot of times they would, of course, they get their workbooks and stuff, and they have certain things they're supposed to do independently, and they're supposed to get the teachers to initial it when they've done it, kind of thing, and it has to be finished by the end. But I don't know how many different times. And the first time I was kind of like, had to really try hard to keep a good poker face, because the kids would come in and they'd get their trays for their food, but they'd sit down, but then before they could eat, sometimes they'd even make them stand on their chairs and as loudly as they could read this one passage that they had to learn or something like that, and then they could sit down and eat. I mean, it was it's different. It's just really different.
Yeah, but it's normal for them. It's what they expect.
Again, I'm the director of the camp, so I write all of the curriculum. I'm in charge. So
okay.
So no, I'm not at the mercy of anyone. So that's how I work with the education department of China. So when you are a director of a camp and you're going to be teaching curricula, that all has to be approved. Right, so you just can't teach anything that you want, which is something that's really important to remember about bringing in extra sources into your Wales English, is that they're watching the materials that you're bringing in. You need to be very, very respectful to the Chinese government, to the students' teachers, to the students' parents. That extra that you are showing needs to be really thought out. Are you being kind? Are you being appropriate? Are you being respectful? I think it's just so important in materials that you're doing.
Don't talk about Taiwan. Don't talk about Tibet. Don't talk about Japan as far as like any of the history between them. These are things that I was told immediately when I got there by others who had been there, longer. That there are, just make sure you know your audience. Hong Kong, Hong Kong, exactly. Just not the political
something
stuff.
To ask, your 12 or 13-year-olds in your class, what do you think about Hong Kong?
No. Talking about Disneyland in Hong Kong is okay, but talking about, anything political or anything that, use your brains. You wouldn't be in this job if you didn't at least have some interest in Chinese culture or something. It's easy enough to do a research, and when in doubt, get on the Facebook page and just throw it out there and say, hey, what do you think about this? Word it carefully, because they do monitor that Facebook page. But, if you have any doubt at all, there are no stupid questions about that stuff. And in fact, it's also this doesn't happen online because it is one-on-one or two-on-one or however. But there was one time where I actually got pulled in for with the international school. This was okay to teach a more of an individual thinker type of an approach. But my first year teaching the domestic kids at the Tianjiabing, the vice principal called me in and said that I had a little bit too much of a individual type approach to what I was teaching, and I needed to change it to a more of a group mentality kind of thing. And it wasn't scary or anything like that. I just kind of thought about it and I thought, okay, well, all right, and didn't have any problems after that. But if you ever do end up actually going there, the classes at Tianjiabing there were cameras in the class.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. At the college in Wuhan, no. But yeah, at the school in Tianjiabing, they were watching.
Yeah. No, it's really, really, really interesting to know all of this. It's fascinating. So sorry about the quick ending of that video, but actually that was initially supposed to be one video, but it ended up being nearly 2 hours because Justin, Maggie and I just had such fun talking about this, and it was so interesting. But I think there's some really valuable things to take away from other sections of it, so I've decided to break it into 3 different videos. So the next one I'll be uploading is all around parental expectations and tips for us as teachers to really interact well with them. So I'm hoping that you'll find that super interesting too. Most of all, I'd like you to put below any questions that you have, because this could be an ongoing series, because I just think for many of us who don't have enough knowledge and understanding of the Chinese culture, this can just be so helpful to ensure that we deliver the best possible lessons and that everyone understands each other, which is really important. So please put anything you want to say in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. See you soon.